Hi, we're V and Haley from Story Brewers, and we're here today with the Good Society Beginner's Guide to Roleplaying.
This video is for anyone who is new to role-playing or might not have played a collaborative game before.
In this video, we won't be going over the rules of how to play Good Society, but what we will be going over is the basics of how to roleplay and what you might think about during the game. Once you've watched this video, check out the link in the description below for the full How to Play series. Tabletop roleplaying is a conversation. Roleplaying is the act of telling a story with other people. You tell this story in the form of a conversation, talking about fictional events and what might happen next.
When you play a role-playing game, your job is to do all the things you would do in a good conversation.
This means listening to other people and telling them when they've said something you think is great, building on what other people have said in the conversation so far, and giving everyone a chance to talk and contribute.
Believe it or not, doing these things is the most important part of role-playing. The rules come later. Here's an example of how a good conversation might progress.
I think Grace, being somewhat of a hot-blooded person, is still kind of like prickling over the cravat situation, and seeing Thomas gets this idea in her head, so Grace kind of like strides over. And it's like probably the first time that we've like spoken in a little while.
And Thomas is like immediately blush.
Right.
Like red in the face straight away. And I think Jacob probably notices Thomas turn like this. Shade of scarlet.
I think Grace isn't really like introduced. It's a little bit like a little familiar, like and is like, "Oh, Thomas, you've never quite got the hang of this gestures to the like clothing, have you?"
Miss Thorne, it's been quite some time. And he like goes to doff his hat, but he's not wearing a hat because it's been taken off as it enters in the entry hall.
And so you see like Grace like slowly undoes her own cravat, and then like takes this won't do. This does not match. Luckily I have one. Which
you can have mine.
Yeah, you can have mine. I want to suggest, Grace suggests as the so she does the cravat up beautifully. It's like, oh, you know that the Baron does love his cravats. You know, be sure to mention, like this Italian silk.
Be aware of the conversation as you play, and be invested in what other players have to say. What kind of conversation is Good Society?
In Good Society, players work together to tell the story, and everyone gets to contribute equally. The story belongs to everyone.
One player in your game will take the role of facilitator. The facilitator doesn't have any additional control over the story. Rather, they are in charge of making sure everyone gets to contribute to the conversation, and to help players understand the rules of the game.
When you play Good Society, imagine you and your fellow players are co-authors of a novel. Along with them, you have the power to determine the story.
It's useful to think about the overall shape of the narrative, and be courageous in proposing new ideas and developments in that narrative.
As an author, you have permission to make things up, from the description of the ballroom to your characters' family members and their estate.
And this is where it might be useful to draw on Austen's works for things like character types, tropes, and events that may happen. How should I contribute to the story?
You can contribute to the story in two main ways: by playing your major character and by supporting the stories of other players.
In Good Society, you will take on the role of a major character. Major characters are the central focus of the story, and as a player, your responsibility is to play your major character throughout the game.
There are three important things you'll need to do when you play your major character. First, describe what your major character does and say what they say out loud.
She like gestures to like she's wearing a cravat. That's like I had this in my last station. It's Italian silk. I thought you would want to get a closer look. It seems like something you would enjoy.
And like I kind of like look around everyone else, and I kind of like lean like imperceptibly in towards it and make like a show of just like, and then lean back out and go, "Oh, it's lovely. However, are you sure that's even real silk?"
Second, take action to pursue your character's desires. Your character wants things. Show us how they're going to go about getting them.
I have found myself in a particular tricky situation from which I can extricate myself only by setting up a mutual arrangement of convenience, one that I hope that you will be able to assist me with.
Third, accept and orchestrate your character's own misfortunes. Don't be defensive about your character's fate. Let bad things happen to them. You can always triumph over them later.
It's also really important to support the stories of other players. In Good Society, there are two main ways to do this.
Along with your major character, you'll also play a secondary character called a connection. This character is connected to one of the other major characters, for example, as their sibling, parent, or rival.
You play your connections in much the same way as your major character, by describing what they do and saying what they say. But their purpose is very different. You use your connections to make the lives of other major characters more complicated. For example, by playing a rival suitor to their beloved.
If you are not married within the coming month or two, I'm going to have to call Mortimer back from university.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes.
Mortimer, he's happy there.
When you play a connection, go along with the plans of the major characters. This is often as simple as saying yes. If a character asks your connection to dance, accept. If they try to trick your connection, go along with it. For the moment.
Dear Ms. Thorne, regarding your missive of the XX of August, absolutely, I feel like we've had a lot of differences over the years, but I would love to talk to you and kind of sort out our differences.
When you play Good Society, you will have a pool of resolve tokens. These resolve tokens allow you to make suggestions about what should happen next in the story. If you find yourself thinking, oh, wouldn't it be great if, then that's a really great time to use one of these. Table etiquette and player safety. When you roleplay, don't forget you're playing with other people. And to help everyone work together to tell a shared story, there are a few things to keep in mind.
At the beginning of the game, your group will go through a process called collaboration, where you decide on the tone and content of the story ahead. It is important to respect these decisions and keep within the tone agreed.
When someone is interacting with your major character or connection you control, then it's time to talk. When your major character or a connection you control is not present in the scene, it's time to sit back, enjoy the show, but also to think of ideas to contribute to the story. If you do have an idea, signal this to the facilitator and they will let you know when to make your suggestion. Remember, players are much more important than the game. And if you find yourself feeling uncomfortable during play, there should be a tool called the X card, which is available for you to use during the game.
The X card allows you to stop the game without giving reasons. To activate the X card, you can hold up an X card, say X card, make an X shape with your arms. Play then stops, and everyone discusses how the scene can proceed in a way that doesn't make anyone uncomfortable.
And if you notice anyone else on your table starting to feel uncomfortable, don't be shy and get calling for a timeout so that you can touch base and make sure everyone is still happy with how play is proceeding.
There's a lot to learn when you play Good Society for the first time, but we hope you have fun as well.
Yeah, and you don't have to be perfect when you play. You can take time to think before you say anything, even retract something you've just said, or if you're not sure what's going to happen next or what should happen next, there's a whole table of players there to help you, so don't be afraid to ask.
That's it from us, so go out there and get your Jane on. Proceed hence and partake liberally of the Jane.